Okay, so when I was younger and I didn't have as many commitments as I do now, I spent quite a lot of my holidays going abroad and fighting. So in 2003, I studied at the Shaolin Temple. In 2004, I spent a month at Muay Thai. In 2005, I spent a month at Gracie Barra in Rio. It is shocking how few pictures and videos I have from that era because we weren't carrying cameras around all the time then. And so today, I want to talk about everything I learned from training at a bunch of different martial arts academies around the world. Number one, I am not that tough. So this was one of the earliest lessons I'd learned. By the time I went abroad, I'd already done like about 3 years of traditional jiu-jitsu, some like capoeira, Wing Chun, and a whole bunch of Shaolin Kung Fu. And then I went to actual Shaolin itself and I just realized that I was a very, very small fish in a very big pond. So I trained with the Shaolin display team, but this really came home to me when I used to go and watch the training over the road at Ta Guo, where they have 13,000 students, all of them training twice a day in like forms, weapons, and actual fighting. When you see a whole sports field full of teenagers who are better than you at the thing you're trying to get good at, that is a humbling experience and that will do you good because it reminds you that however good you get, there is always someone better than you. Number two, overtraining isn't as dangerous as under-recovering. So I feel like a lot of people worry about overtraining these days and start thinking that if they train every day, they're going to get injured or break their central nervous system somehow or otherwise mess themselves up. And although I think overtraining is something that happens, I think it's less of a worry than a lot of people think. So for instance, when I was in Shaolin, we would train for 4 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night. When I was training in Brazil, I would have 2 sessions a day, one of which was pretty heavy on the sparring, and then I would have extra private lessons on top of that 3 times a week. And when I was in Thailand, we would do 2 heavy sessions a day with pad work and bag work and shadow boxing and skipping and all the rest in each of them. And before them, I would still run in the mornings, sometimes up a big hill. And what made the difference in all of those situations is that I was worrying about recovery. So after the morning session, I would quite often go home and have a nap. I would make sure I was eating a ton, and I would try and reduce the other stresses in my life. And that's had a really big impact on the way I think about overtraining going forward. Like if I put more training stress into my life, then that's fine as long as I add some recovery stuff alongside it. And that might be making sure I get an extra hour of sleep. It might mean I get more high quality protein in. It might just mean that I don't do it when I'm at a stressful time at work. Number 3, basics are crucial. Okay, so everywhere I've been, the very best people are really good at the basics. Now that we all have access to YouTube, it's very tempting to learn the flashy moves, the tricky stuff, the stuff that you think other people aren't going to see coming. But actually what's important is getting so good at the basic fundamental stuff that has been proven to work time and time again that you can pull it off to a high level on anyone. So the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts I met could tap almost anybody with the cross-collar choke that you learn on the first day in the gym. They could lie on their side and let you get on top of them, and there were subtle things about their positioning that were almost invisible to the naked eye that meant that you just couldn't get anything going on them. Again, in Thailand, all the best coaches were just really, really good at the basic stuff. They were doing the same round kicks and combinations and sweeps as everybody else, but they developed them to a level where they could hit you with them when you were completely out of position to hit them back. In Shaolin, the best guys could do the basic forms more impressively than most acrobatic routines I've seen. It's really important to get the basics good. That is what makes you good. Which also ties into 10,000 kicks is not that many. So when I was in Thailand, every training session finished with 100 teeps on the bag, 100 knees, and 100 round kicks. And if you do the maths, then 100 times 2 training sessions a day, times 5 days a week, times the 4 weeks I was there, means I was doing each of those kicks 4,000 times. And when I came back, my Muay Thai coach was really surprised by how hard I was kicking. But it's not really that surprising. So Bruce Lee famously said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." And I honestly don't know what it would look like to practice 10,000 kicks once each. That seems insane. But practicing one kick 10,000 times does not take as long as you might think. And this is something I've taken into other spheres. When I started getting into wrestling, I would do at least 20 wrestling shots across the mat every time I was on a wrestling mat. and my wrestling shot got pretty fast. So commit to practicing the basics at the start or the end of every session or whenever you get a spare minute, and you'll be surprised how fast those numbers add up. Fighters are friendly. So some of the best fighters I met are also the nicest people. In Shaolin, I played basketball with the monks and they all dunked on me even though they're all about 5'4". When I was in Brazil, I went out with a lot of the local black belts even though I was just like a gringo white belt with no real skills. I actually went to Japan with a sling on my arm from a separated shoulder that I got during wrestling. And that was a great conversation starter. Some guy who was like the 11th best ranked kickboxer in Japan started talking to me about fighting stuff, like challenged me to spar with him in the bar even though I had a broken arm, and was talking about how he taught himself Muay Thai after watching On Back. And honestly, fighting is just a great way to see a country. It shows that you respect that country's traditions and that you're willing to work hard and sweat and get beaten up alongside everyone else. And honestly, money cannot buy that connection in a lot of places. It will open doors to you that would otherwise be closed. But you also have to pay it back. It's important to be nice. Now, hopefully we all learned this from Patrick Swayze, but I cannot reiterate how important it is to your overall fighting progression to be nice to other people. Some people seem to have this feeling that when they walk into a fight gym, they should act the badass, like act tough, like not show any signs of weakness. But that is almost, I would argue, the opposite of what you should do. If you walk in and act like a nice, respectful person to be around, people will pay that back. I have been to so many jiu-jitsu gyms where the nicest, friendliest people get good spectacularly fast. Because when they get tapped out, the person who's tapped them out sort of just naturally wants to show them what they got them with, show them how to get out of it. Or when they ask a question, people just go the extra mile to help them out a little bit. And that really compounds over time until you're just learning the tricks, the principles, all the stuff that you wouldn't normally pick up on your own if you were being like a hard ass about it for years and years and years. If you're training in a foreign country, it doesn't matter how much money you're paying for the training, the people who are actually teaching you are still doing you a favor and you should act like it. Treat people nicely, be respectful, say thank you for your time, they will be nicer to you, you will learn faster, and everything will be more fun. And finally, you don't need to go abroad to learn any of this stuff. Traveling is fantastic for what it will teach you, and I will never forget the fun I had or the adventures I got in while I was doing it. But honestly, if what you want is to be good at fighting and grow as a person, then you don't have to do it. The standard of instruction is really high almost everywhere now, and you can learn just as much in your home country. So if you don't have the money or the free time to go abroad, don't worry about it. You can still make progress. Start where you are, practice the basics, be nice, and see where it takes you. Good training.